Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. I'm in the beautiful old cemetery in Centerville on Cape Cod, opposite the 1856 country store. Looking at some of these old stones, I have some ideas in mind with the holiday book coming up. Teddy, I'm over here. Uh, and I like to look at some of these older stones. I like to visit some of these cemeteries that have like 17th century, 18th century stones to get some ideas. They were artists. These people were artists, the old stone cutters. And here he comes. I'm just recording a video, baby.
Oh, that's cool.
What's the penny candy situation?
Penny candy?
Yeah. Did you get? Oh, you didn't get any penny candy. You got an old-time soda from this cute place over here.
Yeah, I also got a soda bottle.
I look at some of these stones, and you know, you're seeing these are the weeping willow. Some of these are the weeping willow stones. Some of them are, yes, Ted, the death's head. But you know, these are older stones, and they're in varying stages of repair. Some of them have had some old repairs, right? Like these, they've had the old straps put on them. But in the meantime, you know, time is taking its toll. So I like to come in here and visit because some of these older cemeteries, there's lots on the Cape, have such great art. And I know that sounds funny. We tend to associate, come back with you, we tend to associate cemeteries as being Halloweeny and spooky. And that's not quite fair, is it? It's just that sort of connotation of, oh, it's a cemetery, so there must be ghosts. But, you know, if you think back to the people who did the early stone cutting, and there were sort of repeat motifs from one community to the next, but some of them are so striking and exciting and different. That's what I'm looking for when I come to these places. Inspiration for pattern designs, particularly as I move toward that Halloween book. I don't want to make a direct correlation between cemeteries and Halloween. I think that's not fair at all. But I do think honoring some of these early examples of art, folk art, right, is a good thing to do and appropriate to do in the format of rug design in the month of October. Seeing stuff like this that is just super high relief, right? The mother. Lots of these stones have unusual shapes to them as well. This one over here does not have art, but it has what look like some beveling on the sides of it. That's really interesting. Let's see if we can find, oh, there's a double. Let's see if we can find another extraordinary example of art. This is the Masonic symbol. So this is what I'm familiar with since my dad was a Mason. I love seeing that. This cemetery I haven't been through before. We come through here all the time, and I never walk through the cemetery. Beautiful examples of text and some really unusual shapes and important early stones. It's a little sprig of greenery here, maybe a thistle or bud for Henry W. But I'm not seeing a lot of really wacky examples of gravestone art. So let's check some other cemeteries while we're out and about. Can't walk by these cute buttercups. Remember these things? They're so shiny. Remember how when you're a kid you hold these under your chin and it determines apparently whether you like butter or not, as if there's anyone on earth who does not like butter. Let me walk you over here to this country store. We can't go by this. This is so charming. You see how the lilacs are in bloom over there? Ooh, weird mushrooms. What the heck are those? More designs. Isn't that a cool design? It's a weird tree stump with all of these weird mushrooms. Yeah, this is something super pretty. This old country store, 1856. And again, this is Centerville on Cape Cod. Apparently they have penny candy, homemade jams and jellies, food and gifts. We have just indulged heavily in the penny candy. Isn't this charming? Cottage style Victorian. Isn't that gorgeous? Bench for Democrats, bench for Republicans. We're not going to talk about that stuff. That's for sure. Getting ready for Memorial Day weekend here. This is a little bit of Cape Cod charm, and I'm going to take off and look for another cemetery to wander through. I'm telling you, the more you start looking, the more you see patterns and designs and everything. I'm not a garden person, but I'm guessing those are like bluebells? Is that right? They don't look like silvery lupine or something like that, but I thought, gosh, is that ever a pretty design? Been doing so many floral patterns lately. And then I saw this and thought, oh, wait a minute. This is another beautiful design. The dappled sort of grass, right? And then this like diagonal zigzag of colored stones, all these pretty flagstones. Oh, there's designs everywhere. Another one that I go to a lot, and I never know the name of this one, but I'm right in the town of Sandwich on Cape Cod on Route 6A. And normally when I go here, I come in the morning and I'm not really thinking about designs for hook drawings. And now that I am thinking about that, I want to check this cemetery again. It's a beautiful wandering cemetery. Lots of, with Memorial Day coming up, we've got lots of veterans flags, including the Revolutionary War. So let's pause and walk back this way to the older part of the cemetery. Okay, this one is really different. Gosh. Okay, so this one is from 1841. I can't even make this out. I think this is a stylized tree. It's lilting a little bit forward. This is a nice old one. It looks like marble, but this looks like it's like some kind of tree design. I mean, I would think, don't you think that looks like a willow? Yeah. And with a few sprays on the side. So that's the first curious one that we're seeing. I don't think stylistically that would be one that I would choose, just because it's very hard to make out. Not because the stone is old, I mean, it's beautifully carved, but in a weird way, it looks like both a weeping willow and a heart, right? So that in itself it's quite beautiful. Just a little bit visually confusing. Let's look for more. Okay, I see something amazing right here. Look at this. And this one's been strapped too to keep it safe. But whoa, that is the hand of, oh, uneven ground. That is the hand of God, like just giving you a little bit of a reminder there. Look at the high relief of this piece. Again, this wouldn't be my first choice for a rug design, maybe as like a corner border or an additional motif. But man, that is just, how eerie is that? Can you get a close-up of that? That is so cool. The relief, the little ruffled cuff. Looks like a very feminine hand, doesn't it? Can I feel any fingernails? No fingernails. Gosh, that's pretty. See another pretty one. This is a tree that's a little bit more usable for rug design. Super, super primitive motif. Beautiful weeping willow. Very stylized and simplified. Isn't this pretty? Mrs. Elizabeth C., wife of Robert Toby. So she passed in, what is that? November, what is that? 1847. Yeah, this is a pretty stone. It's had tremendous loss. Look, it's got rebar from like many years ago, and they strapped it again. But isn't this beautiful? Very simple flowers here. Easy to do. This is so pretty. It almost looks like a woman. My mom was just saying this morning, we were sitting in front of a duck pond while we were having coffee. We stayed at a motel for a couple of days before we go to our cabin. And she was saying how much some trees look like women because of the way that they are just sort of willowy, lilting, soft, curved bodies leaning usually over or toward the water. And then others look very like men. This is very sexist tree conversation. But others are very rigid and straight. This one is so pretty because it's very feminine the way the willows are coming down, right? Very soft like hair. It's really pretty, unusual. Design. I think I'm going to use that design for something, so we'll take a picture of that too. But let's see what else we can find. You know, it's worth saying in some of these old cemeteries, it's different from region to region, but in terms of cemetery lore, sometimes when we see the smaller stones, we assume that it was a baby or a child, and you get very sad and melancholy, and it's not always the case. Sometimes the stone is smaller because, number one, the family couldn't afford to buy a more expensive stone, something larger and grander. Sometimes it's a footstone, and it's marking where the body's actually laying. So in this case, the body was probably here, and it would be a small person. But it doesn't always mean when you see the smallest stones that there's a very sad story. There's different reasons why stones would be small. Sometimes they're children, but usually it's one of the other reasons. So just remember that when you're wandering around yours. So this is a little bit sad. Something might have happened. There was just an accident on this road earlier. You know, trees come down and this has happened. It happened long enough ago that a hosta is growing on it. I'm not going to touch it, but maybe somebody's putting these stones back together. These are pretty old stones. These are examples of small stones. We don't really know what they were used for. You can see some decorative corners. This is really sad, but at least they're still present in the graveyard, right? They're not like in an antique store. Let's come over here. I noticed a little, what would you call it? There's a grouping of trees, and there's a space in the middle. Ooh, copse. No, I think a copse is an open expanse. Look at this stuff. Look at this thing. This is another willow design. Ooh, check that out. It's a willow, but it's in a bowl. You know, in rug hooking, we're so big on our basket and bowl designs. This is a beautiful, but this is a combo. It's a bowl and it has a weeping willow coming out of it. That's a great idea for a primitive design. Oh, I like that a lot. You just never see that. You see one or the other, like the bowl with the fruits or the whatevers, or the weeping willow. And this is a great idea for a combo. Somebody thought of this in 1846. Surprised we don't see more because that really is a great design. The moss is obscuring the lines, but you can see there's lots of peaks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so it's symmetrical, right down the middle. And you know, I wouldn't even, I know you in a lot of cemeteries, you're not supposed to use this chalk anymore to touch them. I personally don't understand that because I think it's a great, this is folk art. This is someone's carving from the middle 19th century. I think it's well worth taking a copy of it if you love it. But in a lot of cemeteries, they definitely frown on using chalks and stuff. And in this case, I wouldn't want to touch it because at this point, it's really up to someone who knows what they're doing to remove like the moss, right? Because if I start like grinding it in, maybe it makes the stone worse. It's hard to know. It's hard to measure. Let's see what's inside that copse. Here's a nice veteran stone. Let's see who this is. Somebody, okay. Oh, so this is the Civil War. Holy mackerel. There's definitely revolutionary markers in here, Civil War and more current. This is another nice combo. Another kind of urn. The other one distinctly looked like a bowl. This one definitely looks like an urn. And look at all the filigree where the willow tree is coming down. This really is pretty too. Oh, this would be such a good one to use the charcoals on, right? Because you see all of these different lines like veins coming up, and all those other great swirls are so filigree, right? So organic, but then all of these great verticals coming down. Some of the swirls make heart shapes too. You know, I don't think stone cutters were quite that whimsical that they did that on purpose, but I think it's just one of Bob Ross's happy accidents that there's so many occurrences of hearts on these stones. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is another beauty. Now we're going to go into the cups. There might be nothing interesting in here, but look at this. I mean, this is so pretty. It's shady. Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny how the trees have grown up around these stones? I mean, there is something so romantic and natural about the way that this all has happened. Let's take a look at the stones in here. They're all facing toward the street. Now, 6A has always been here behind us because that's the old King's Highway. So since Cape Cod was settled, 6A has been there. It's not like the road came after. This was here facing the road. But of course, in those days, it was like a stagecoach road and all horses. Nye, that's one of the earliest Cape Cod families. Like Molly Nye Toby, the rug hooker from Rhode Island. Right? Ooh, there's some interesting ones in here. You know, the thing about here is that because this is so protected, these stones look like they're in a little bit better shape. There's not a lot of, oh, something's in my shoe. Ha! There's not a lot of decoration. This is a very simple little urn. You see that? How old is that stone? 1812. So that's one of the older stones, but it looks a lot newer because it's so well protected. This one next to it, it's fallen down. It's got a beautiful urn on top. It's got some kind of fan or sunburst designs on the sides. Really pretty. Ooh, okay. I take it back. I love to be wrong. I love to be wrong because that means I learned something too. This is a willow, right? That's a willow that's kind of had it. This seems like marble, but it looks a lot softer than some of the other stones that we're seeing here. And this has really taken a beating. It looks much more porous, but I was just going to say, look at these two. Did I not just shoot my mouth off and say you hardly ever see hearts on gravestones? Well, here we go. Here's two hearts right here. So we've got the urn with the top, right, like the canister, two weeping willow trees. Can you see those? One here and one here. A swag with rings. Look at how decorative that is. And two hearts with the initials. Same thing with this one. It might be a husband and wife situation. It's an identical stone. Gosh, that's so pretty. This one has tassels. Oh, that one has tassels too. It's got the swag and the tassels.
Joseph Nye and...
Oh, interesting. What are the years? So Nye is one of the first families on Cape Cod. There's also the Nye Homestead right around the corner that you can visit. That's a beautiful house museum. They always have a lot of events going on. I have asked them before
And last time I went about a year ago, the historian wasn't there. And my question was, is this branch of the Nye family related to Molly Nye Toby, the rug hooker from Barrington, Rhode Island? Because, you know, I'm always trying to research her. And because the prior historian had just left the job, and they hadn't employed a new one yet, no one was able to tell me the answer to that question. So I'm hoping if I head over there this year, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of life, no, but I would like to know for myself, because I do so much work on researching Molly Nye Toby, if these Nyes are her people too. So we're going to leave this enclosure unless there's some good stuff over here. There's like a little trough over here. I wonder what that's about. That is a deliberate little trough. Does anybody know the answer to that?
Comment.
Oh gosh. Conant?
Comment.
Comment. Okay. Well, Conant is another one of the old names. I thought you were giving us some Mayflower trivia there. Yeah, this is another pretty one. One of the great things about these gravestones, and this is why they can legitimately be referred to as folk art, is because with folk art, right, two of the ideas behind folk art that are the most important is there's no sort of perspective and there's no regard for proportion. And when you see urns and trees grossly, outsized, the trees being very small in relationship to the urn, that's folk art, right? They're not trying to scale it to be realistic. That's one of the great traits of folk art. Let's pause and we'll head back to the back and see if we can see any different motifs. So lots of Tobys around, which has got me thinking, because Molly Nye Toby. We just saw some Nyes and now we're seeing some Tobys, right? So that's interesting. I've got a lot of questions. I'm seeing something, where did I see it? Over here. I just saw a beautiful rose. Is that it? That's really different too. You know, because the idea of using the symbol of a rose is more of a Victorian invention, but this is an older stone, right? This person died in 1850. That is the Victorian period, but it's way at the beginning. And a super high relief rose, it's like a real naturalist effort, isn't it? That is a really pretty one, very unusual. I don't know that if you chose that for a motif, if you were doing a design that was meant to evoke the art of a gravestone, I'm not sure that rose would read as that kind of art, just because it's such an unusual motif to find here. It's funny too how this rose is cut off. Like there has to be something symbolic about, there's one bud, there's one that's disappearing from the frame, and there's one that's alive on the branch. Interesting. This is interesting too. This is like a Dresden plate if you're a quilter. Look at that. It's not like a really wildly complicated design, but that's a really unusual design. So this person passed away at the age of 16, sadly, in, gosh, does it even say the year? Oh, 1841. And that is a beautiful plate design, almost like a fracture design. Two drooping flowers, two sad flowers that are wilted on the sides. This graveyard is really, I don't remember if it's a cemetery or graveyard, right? Because one of them is associated to a church and the other is not. There's no church here. So I'll have to figure out what the right term is. We're going to do one more walk around the back and see if we missed anything great. This is interesting. Again, it's a repeat of what we've spoken about, but we've got the urn in the center. And classic folk art tradition, that Dresden plate design we just saw, it's not a Dresden plate, right? The quilters took that pattern, and fracture art takes that pattern. We don't know what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but we certainly know the urn is a symbol of mourning. And that Dresden shape is cut into quarters, right? And that is one of the great things about folk art, that you can chop stuff up, put things in borders, right? Because the border design and the corners are always going to be really important. It turns out it's the same in some graveyard art. You have to remember that depending on what part of the country you're in, you had different graveyard artists for your earlier burial grounds, earlier stones. Everybody in different regions has different artists. You tend to see the same kinds of skulls, right? You see them in Newport, Rhode Island. Sometimes you see them nearby, but not like many states away, right? Because it'd be one artist who's got plenty of work. One thing you can be sure of, like the business of death, it's a regular business. So you tend to get the same artists working in specific regions that are quite narrow little pockets. And you see other people being inspired by similar art, but very different choices for gravestone art from region to region, even town to town. So it's interesting to see, we haven't seen skulls in this graveyard. And the graveyard we were in earlier, still not skulls, right? I haven't seen any skulls yet. So that's unusual. Lots of willows. We've even seen lots of flowers. We've seen these, what we now refer to as fracture designs, just the simple geometric. We've seen the finger to God. We've seen a few crosses, right? Very sort of mellow, chill looking crosses. We have not seen skeleton faces yet. And that is like a reflection of faith in that area, right? Whether you think it's appropriate way back when that a skeleton represents death, it would be different from pocket to pocket. So it's curious to go to your graveyard and figure out what art is on those hundreds of stones and just be thinking about the choices of the stonecutter, right? Because it came down to that. There's only a certain amount of thing that each artist could execute in stone. Some people were great at skulls, some people were great at hands, some people were great at wings or trees, and not everybody was good at multiple things, right? So that would limit it too. One more check around the back. This one is just in the middle of nowhere at the back of the yard. It's funny because most of them are positioned quite close to the road, sorry, and then back here there's hardly any stones. This is probably Oddfellows, right? Like the fraternal organization, the Oddfellows. Their symbol is the chain, as opposed to the Masons. We usually see the compass or the eye, sometimes a pyramid. But for the Oddfellows, we typically see a chain. I don't know hardly anything about the Oddfellows, but it would be otherwise a very strange logo to choose, right? Because it's so kind of negative and permanent unless you're talking about the organization. It doesn't have great symbolism, right? It doesn't have great.
Is that supposed to?
Is it
made?
broken?
Is it made as broken,
Ooh.
or is it? Did it?
No, it looks like
break
it's actually
after?
broken. That's a great thought, though, if it was really broken. Oh, there's a little spider right there. Yeah, no, I think it actually chipped off because it's very high relief. It does. It feels like it's sharp and there's damage. I would think. I mean, you never know, and that's a really cool idea. But if it were an open chain, parted below, united above.
Well, this is very smooth, so
No,
this
you're
could
right.
be intentional.
It could be intentional. It's really hard to tell, particularly with all the moss. I love that saying, parted below, united above. That's really interesting.
Well,
it's
it's
like
part
the symbol
the
of
chain
eternity.
is parted below.
Oh my God. What's the face for, oh man, have another drink? No, that makes a lot of sense. Parted below, like in this world, but also at the bottom of the chain, and united above. That is so, so clever. You're right. Yeah, and you know, and this is a much bigger link, right? All the others are uniform. So yeah, you're absolutely right. That's definitely a broken chain. So I'm guessing that symbolism, not the Oddfellows at all. And I don't know anything about the Oddfellows in this area. We did see 2 Masonic stones here. I think we put one on film. But yeah, no, it doesn't seem like that's this at all, does it? It seems like this is something completely different. How cool is that? He has gone to the spirit land. He has gone to the spirit land. Wow, this one is exceptional. This one's worth walking to the back of this cemetery for, isn't it? Check some of these out. Another really curious stone. Walking back in the cemetery is a big thing. This is so odd. It's not going to help us with our design work, but holy mackerel, this almost looks like a homemade stone, right? Like this does not look like it is done by an artisan. This looks like a paving stone or something that was poured specifically for this. And it says, Custy Leighton, born April 16, 1888, and then just like a finger going across here, died January 9, January, or maybe that doesn't say January, died.
Age?
Age 96.
No,
That's
that
an
should,
N.
that should be, it cannot be
No,
age.
no. But they died in 1925. So 25,
37 years
oh
old or
my
so.
gosh, that's really, really young. This is totally a homemade stone. Somebody did this with like a stick or something. I mean, really, and then they embedded all these beautiful pebbles around it. How crazy is this? And none of them have come out, or if they have, they've been replaced.
Would it be arts and crafts?
No, I think it could be, I think it's poverty. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's a specific style, right? Because arts and crafts is like another like over the top, really meticulous style. This is a totally homemade thing. This is so beautiful. Maybe the prettiest one in the cemetery, just because it comes from the heart. Somebody, and who knows? Maybe I don't know about the lines of this place, but who knows if they were even supposed to put a body in this stone here at the very edge of the cemetery. This is the neighbor's yard right here. But it was important to somebody to make sure there was a nice big stone here, that it said what it needed to say, and that it had some beautiful decoration. Looks like local rocks from the beach. Oh, that is so sad and so beautiful too. Still not nary a skull in sight, which is unusual. Look at this. Talk about unusual. I mean, it's going to be very hard to read this one. She looks like she's sleeping. Gosh, that is a haunting image, isn't it? Again, this is not a typical gravestone motif. So, can you use this? Yes, it's definitely before 1928, but it's copyright free for sure. But it would really read as not anything to do with cemetery art. But it's a beautiful piece, isn't it? It's very Victorian in the way that it feels. She looks healthy and plump, and yet she's deceased. She's got this beautiful drape made of a cover over her. She looks comfortable. That's really eerie, isn't it? With the moss over her face and her hair too. It's really eerie. She looks like a little doll. I wish that this was more legible. That's why it's fun to be able to feel like you can use chalk, because there's things you can pick up with the side of the chalk that you really can't pick up with your eye. Maybe with the camera I can do some fooling around with the different filters. But God, that's so pretty. All of these grains. There's a lot of red in this rock too. And it's funny how white and ghostly that part of the stone is. This is a fallen one, but this is another pretty one. Impossible to make out the text. Totally illegible, but it's a beautiful one because it's possibly an angel taking somebody to heaven. And the symbolism of the hand pointing toward heaven, just like the Statue of Liberty, right? That was a symbol that people recognized. So I'm guessing one of these characters is an angel, and there's some clouds here. It's very hard to tell. Another small figure, very sad, super high relief like the one we just looked at. Another beautiful image, super high relief. Speaking of high relief, this is another pretty one. And yeah, we were just saying you could, nice little buttercup, you could use wool or boucle type yarn if you were creating a gravestone effect that had moss. If you used some yarn and hooked with that, something with a little bit of texture and that kind of color, that would be really, really atmospheric and pretty. This is a pretty area we're approaching because, oh, wow. Okay. Oh, so this must have been something special. There's only 2 stones in here at this moment. They both have a footer, so they both have a footstone. It used to have a door right here. You can see that the stones don't have a huge amount of decoration, but the gate does. It has all of these panels of weeping willow with lamb, like probably Lamb of God, right? And beautiful lea, like a fleur-de-lis, all the way around. And these are examples of stones. You can see the headstone and the footstone. So this was a quite presumably tall person. That's a big gap. Both of these, this could have been a couple. Really pretty. The stones are very different looking. This one's missing a video. So Swansea, and the other one is totally beautiful.
The lamb.
Gosh. So she passed away in 1900. So this is a grave for multiple people, right? There's 3 people around here. And I don't know if that stone ever had text. That does have the lamb, right? So that is a super Christian symbol. And the lamb on that headstone matches the lamb here, exactly, right? With the weeping willow. This is a full blast memorial here. So this is a much later stone than what I'm looking for, but it is a beautiful part of the cemetery. So this is the stone that on the other side was completely blank. They're facing different ways. I don't know how or why, but we have the same lamb on the same sort of pedestal. And what could this be?
Is that a lamb? It looks more like a fox or something.
Oh no, I think it's a lamb. I think it's definitely a lamb. I wonder if this is a lily or something,
Or
but
a
it doesn't have a
bird.
stem. A bird. Gosh, I'm so tempted to touch that, but I'm not going to. Looks like he's eating, doesn't he? Could be a bird pointing down. You know what? It could be a bird. I mean, it's a very odd perspective, isn't it? Because we're getting the God's eye view of the bird, but not of the lamb. We're getting the side of the lamb, the top of the bird. But yeah, the bird is coming in toward the lamb. Interesting. Again, that's not particularly going to help us with, or at least me, with the design that I have in mind. But it is a gorgeous memorial. So this is another huge cemetery, and this is one town over in Bourne, much bigger. Maybe we'll walk over here and see what, if this is a name or if this is, oh no, that's not a name, it's telling us about the region. But this is the town of Bourne. You can see there's some big, like, sepulcher type big tombs in here, but it's a vast graveyard. And we were just having a moment of where should we walk to find the oldest stones, because those are the motifs I'm wanting to peel. And the answer is probably going to be right next to the road again, right? Because that's where the oldest people would bury people, is right next to the road. So let's take a walk over there and see what we can see. So noisy here because we're right on the road, right? Having these cemeteries right on the road is how it was done back in the day. 6A, the King's Highway, that's the major road. It's also very common. I'm not seeing it in any of these graveyards, but this is an awful thing, but it is absolutely true. A lot of British soldiers, right? When there was a big British presence here and things were kind of coming to a head, it was very typical to see bullet holes through gravestones, right? Using them as target practice. You see that a lot around New England. I've seen it in Concord. I've seen it in Essex, Ipswich. I'm not seeing it here, but it did happen a lot. Now, we haven't talked a lot about the shapes of stones, and that's interesting too, because for us as rug designers, choosing what shape you want, it really dictates the mood, right? You get very Gothic peaks, and then you get rounded ones, you get very pretty ornate ones. Lots of choices there. We're not seeing completely different motifs than we are right up the road, but some are different. We are seeing the stylized tree still, which is really pretty. This is a more lush version of the tree. You're seeing it come down in pieces. This actually is a beautiful motif to hook. It's got an urn here by the look of it. So it's like a raised kind of line where the tree starts. This is one that we're seeing quite a bit in this cemetery, the book. So that really is...
It says come home.
Come home. Oh my gosh, it does say come home. Oh my gosh. I'm not going to attempt to read it because it'll take forever. But this
And
is
here's
the
a
way
small one.
Another little book.
Maddie.
Maddie. Oh my gosh. That is so super sad. If you can see back there, there's a couple of lyres, like the musical instruments. Unusual. Over here, we're an anchor on that one right there. That was a Captain Nickerson. Oh, so that's the first anchor I've seen. Seems like there should be lots of anchors on Cape Cod. He died in 1861, right? So still that sort of, for us, Civil War period, Victorian period, super fitting. Not a religious symbol, right? Ooh, what's that? A flower. Oh my
lily?
gosh, a lily. Totally is a lily. Oh, that is so pretty. There's some pretty ones over here too. Let's check this out. There's an obelisk on both of these, this pairing, because an obelisk is a symbol of mourning, right? That is a memorial symbol. That's why we see it on Bunker Hill. We see it in Washington, D.C. We see it as a symbol of mourning. This is an awesome stone. 2 willow trees together. So this stone is from 1835. Somebody 86 years old, Mrs. Sylvanus Gibbs. Gosh, that is really ornate and pretty. And then going right to the single willow tree that's kind of covering the urn. Lots of the same symbols, but really very different. Each of these is very different from each other. And then let's pause and see what's over here. This is very similar to one we saw in the last one. It is, again, I'm thinking this is deliberate. The willows, but you do see really distinct hearts on top. Don't you see that? That is really deliberate. And then we've got not necessarily an urn, but it's like a bowl again. It could be an urn that's hidden. It's really hard to tell because there's so much erosion. But definitely 2 sets of willows, super symmetrical design, and it's forming a heart where the branches curve in. Really. Another one of these, a different graveyard, but another one. This is a more masculine looking hand, but still super fine, right? A reminder, gentle reminder. These are really unusual. You don't get a lot of hands at the cemetery, and maybe that's not a bad thing. I'm in back in Sandwich. The Glass Museum is right at the end of the road here. The Newton Tavern is over here on the left. This is a beautiful old burial ground. I think this is very simply called the burial ground. And I have an old friend in here. It's been here. I think I found her last autumn. Let me see if I can find her again. I remember I was searching for her because I found her in a book. And I scoured and scoured. I see her already. I see her already. She's right there. We'll look at her in a second. I just want to look at some of these other stones while we're cruising through. These are a little bit different in here. You see there's already different shapes, right? We are literally within 5 minutes of everywhere we've been. We're going to start seeing different symbolism. So this is an entirely different tree, right, with all the branches coming down like paintbrushes. We've got the urn again with the quartered fan design. This is who I mean. So here is Sarah. She's very small. See, this is my hand. So that's how small she is, but she is my favorite. And she actually looks a little bit older than last time. Beautiful stone. Mrs. Sarah Fessenden. You decide. Right here. Kind of hard to make out. She was 65 when she passed away. This stone goes curved, like the text goes curved at the end. It's just an exceptional stone. She's just gorgeous. Sorry, the wind is blowing. You see she's got on a heart pendant. Beautiful sides carved too, but even look at her hair. I mean, isn't she gorgeous? I definitely want to do something with her. I think this is an extraordinary stone. Let me show you something else really interesting. Now, remember how we were saying in the last cemetery, we were not seeing the death's head. Well, guess who's here? This stone, it looks like they tried to glue it. That's bound to not work, right? But there we go. We are seeing death heads in this cemetery. So we're just talking about different carvers here. Right up the road, same immediate area. Oh, I never see the buttercups with the white edges like that. How funny is that? So we are going to see the death heads. This is one of the symbols we really see the most in New England. And it's funny that we got into 3 graveyards this morning, and these are our first ones. Really pretty. What's over here? Oh, wow, look at that. That's different. It is either the rising or the setting sun, hard to know. And then another simple floral design, very similar to fracture work. Of course, we're nowhere near Pennsylvania. Ooh, look at this one. Oh, wow, super stylized with the wings, right? Like the physical body, the big clunky human body taking flight, taking off. Oh, it's such a good cemetery. Lots of different shapes on stones there too. Another death's head. Big ones, small ones, pointy ones, round ones. They are very old. We're right on the mill pond here. There's several. This is the old or ancient burial ground. I forget what they refer to it as. It's like a footer. Really old stones. Let me find some more fun ones. Well, you know what I mean. Holy mackerel. Okay. So I just walked into this little grove here. Like it's just a small little grove. But again, because they're protected at least from this one direction, we're seeing some very old stones. And this one is part underground. But you see the angel on that? It's got kind of cropped hair, almost looks like a male angel. Big eyes, really different. And oh, this looks more like the design of stones in Boston. Yeah, I see there's some bird poops on there, but gosh, isn't that very different? Memento Mori with an S, period. I'm trying to read the year 1794. Whoa. This face reminds me more of the cemetery carvings near the Old North Church in Boston. Way more that style.
at those lucky people over there, their house overlooking the mill pond and the cemetery. Quiet neighbors. Another really pretty one right here. Lots of carving in the hair. Now that is ghostly, isn't it? You could really see that texture-wise. This is an angel with wings, and we've got the geometric on the corners, right? Like the flower shape that's got a circle around it. Really deep carving. You could really see that as a rug, couldn't you? A little bit of flouncing under the neck. Pretty wings. This is the wing that's better. Sun is coming out. Gosh, that's different, isn't it? Very eerie. Will we ever be able to figure out? No, we cannot figure the year on that. Maybe you can. If you can make it out, I would love to know. My guess is that this is another 1600s, just because of the style of art. All right, let's look around a little bit more. Okay, this is another nice angel, maybe in better light. And this is, it's hard to see, but the death year is 1790 something. It's chipped away right on the last digit. But this is another great angel. Classic. This one has a double set of wings, right? 2 tiers of wings. So the whole top part is populated by the angel and the wings and this really classic wig. Big eyes. That nose is so, see, with I don't know a ton about the artists, right, who did this. There's lots of books on them, and I have the books, so I'm going to be consulting those books like crazy. But I remember reading many times that one of the ways that you could kind of make an educated guess about who actually carved the stone or what family carved the stone was to look at the nose, because that's often really, I was going to say a dead giveaway, but let's just say a telltale clue. Okay, this is definitely Angel Corner right here. We're going to look at these 3 stones, right? This is the mill pond right here in Sandwich. I think that, yeah, I think that there was Thornton Burgess's. I think that was the house he grew, no, it's that one, I think. The house he grew up in. It's right on the pond. Yeah, it's got to be that one. Just in case you're a Thornton Burgess fan, the writer, the American Peter Rabbit, because that's now a private home. But it used to be, if you can see the little picnic bench back there. We used to sit there every year when we visited the house. Beautiful location is my point. Let's check out Angel Corner. Now this is an oldie. This is a great cemetery. So this stone is 1750. And we are seeing a different style of face. Can you believe that that's that old? Pretty markings on the side too, pretty flowers. But yeah, very geometric, very well done, completely different style. Very simplified death head with that stylized nose. Now, 1750, let's come over here. This is 1773. And you can see we have a slightly different style. That floral star, no circle around it on the edges. This is a very wide stone. Another stylized angel. I think the hair did have the ringlets in it, but they're a bit worn out. There was a little bit more patterning, more circular patterning in the wings, but the face is really the thing, isn't it? And one more here. This one looks a little bit different again, a little bit more 3-dimensional. I'm trying to make out the year. It looks like maybe 1780. Hard to tell. Hard to tell because this is what I'm looking at. Looks like she died either in her 8th or her 80-something-th year. But another beautiful face. Look at this. How exciting is that to look at? And not surprising, but in these 3 cemeteries, we have not seen a soul in sight. I'm not making death jokes now. I'm not making like macabre jokes. But it's just kind of sad because these are beautiful stones. These are people who had lives just like us and felt the same way that we felt, and they're just here, like here. And nobody comes to remember them anymore. And yeah, nobody's alive who did know them. But just the idea of visiting and saying their names out loud, if you can, right, is, I think, quite meaningful. There's more angels. This is an extended angel corner, but I have to show you this one. I'm just looking to see when the year is. 1737. Now, this one is a little bit different, right? You can see patterning in the wings, but can you also see the cross hatching, right, for where the body would be. The eyes are a little bit different. Do you see the patterning in the hair? It's all a little bit different. It's much more heavily patterned. Look at all the different patterns in the one wing. That is really amazing.
Interesting here too, there's three stones with the sideways tree that we saw in the second cemetery.
Remember when I said, oh, how strange is that? The tree comes up and goes over, right? And it makes a weird shape. 3 of those in a row. And, you know, it's not a great graphic for us, but it does make the point that the same person probably did these, right? And he lived right up the road there. 1718, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, 1718. Whoa. Okay, we got to read this one. This one's going to be crazy. So this is another, it looks like a fairly small one, right? It's a different shape, and it's the death's head. I'm going to come really close. Oh, we got to see this better.
Okay, so this is very different.
Recording stopped because Teddy's calling. Sorry about that. Teddy called right in the middle of the video. Patterns. Sorry about the poops.
And the teeth on this one, really easy to see. Patterns on the wings. I'm going to try to read this part here.
Well, let's see. He lieth. Let me see. Here lieth
Ye body, that's it, Y-E, ye body,
of sheep Jashub Bourne. Something S-O-P. I don't know all of the symbolism here. Who departed this life March 7th, 1781, in the 76th year of his age. He was a righteous. And we lose it. You see how the text gets so much smaller there? See if you can read it. I think your light is better than mine.
Whoa. This is interesting. I'm just looking at the backs of the stones, but I thought it was really cool. Just want to be sure I'm recording. Yep. All the different colors too, right? That's something to think about. Look at how yellow that, like lichen or whatever that is making that stone.
Another great angel face. This one is a little bit in the shade. Hard to see, but very stoic looking man's face. It's hard to tell the year. They put I'm just going to do this, the death year way at the bottom. Let me see, 1773 maybe? Oh, that's another goodie. Wow. Look at the teeth on this one. Very stylized. You see the 2 ridges for the noses and just the hollow eyes. We see a lot of pupil, but this is just the hollow eyes. Look at the shape of the face. Wow. So this stone is from another Toby, 1775. Wow. That's like people were fighting for this country to be a country. Oh, wow. Look at this little one. This is the corner with a lot of the sort of hollow sockets on the faces. Very different, this one too. It's very mossy, but the hollow sockets as opposed to the many that we've seen with pupils.
That one is very sharp. Even though
Yeah,
it's also like
I think that might be a replacement because that one for 1846 is that's a Toby stone. That's an incredibly new looking stone. Not so much this one. This one is died at the age of 45. This is just a Toby stone. I can't see the year, 1845. This is, I hope you can see it. It's a bit of a mashup, right? We saw this at the other cemetery, but instead of tassels, the swag is coming right down. You see what I mean? And the urn with the 2 like star flowers on the sides, the circles with the star in them. So that's kind of a mashup. And although we've seen this with the 3 rings and the swag, we've only saw it as a tassel. And here we're seeing it as like a drape, right? It's fabric draping down. Well, this one looks exceptionally old. 1720, I think this is 1723. It's just handled differently. This has got a lot of pretty carving here. And then we have the death head on top again. But very easy to see this one. Again, I think this is another one that's protected.
Ooh, look at the text on this one. Here lieth the body of Captain Peter Adolph of New York, a something 48 years of New York, York with an E, aged 48 years, who died by shipwreck in this bay, the 16th of March, 1723, was washed on shore miles below this town with an E. Gosh, that's a poignant one, isn't it? All right, I'm going to end on this one because we're headed back toward the exit, and Teddy's calling frantically. He's gonna starve, possibly to death, God forbid. So one more appropriately themed one for my outro here. Very hard to read this stone. I think it's 1730. Hard to tell, but a death head. First example I've seen here on the Cape with the crossed bones above the head. Another really pretty stylized one, simpler wings. But there we go, that's what's different, right? So much fun seeking this out. Okay, I spoke too soon. These two are very pretty. Look at this face. Oh, that's very different. 1794. Very different, very feminine face, isn't it? Different shaped wings, lots of kind of cloudy ruffles. Look at the patterning in the hair. Isn't she pretty? This has been a lot of fun. We just did these 3 cemeteries, and then the 4th one was the one near the country store. So the theme of my day today, and I won't be able to do this often on vacation because the kids obviously calling and driving me nuts, but it is a lot of fun to go into these graveyards because I do have lots of ideas for compositions using very old gravestone art, 1600s, 1700s. I don't even know if I want to do the 1800s because it's these particular cemeteries we visited are so rich in the very old stones, like the early settlement era. But so interesting seeing the different motifs from one to the next, right? So now my head is filled with ideas. I'm going to look back on this video, do some sketching, and I'm going to come up with at least one pattern that I could put into the upcoming Halloween book for later this year, right? It should come out in like September 2024 this year. So if you're working on projects like this too, let me know. I'm on vacation on Cape Cod for a couple of weeks, so I'm not running live shows, but you'll see things like this here and there popping up. I will see you next time at Ribbon Candy Hooking.